This video is for Lindy, the Muser from South Africa, who said that she has a bass at the school she teaches at, but doesn't know where to start in playing it. I will link to her channel, which I advise if you're not already subscribed to it, you should be. So this is my Epiphone Thunderbird. I own two basses. The other one is an Ibanez. I don't know the model. It's your basic cheap 4-string. So this is the Epiphone Thunderbird. Gibson makes the original version. Epiphone is the budget brand off of Gibson, or at least it used to be. But in this case, from everything I can gather, all reviews and everything else, and I can confirm, well, not really, I've never played a Gibson Thunderbird. I've heard the Epi actually is better. So I just bought this because it was a bass that was for sale. It was unique and it worked. So first we're going to do the parts, the anatomy of the bass. In order to get started, this is not how to play, this is just basic bass. This is the body, this is the neck, this is the headstock, this is the bridge, these are the strings. This part of the bridge is where your intonation is adjusted. So by the screws on the end here can be tightened in and out, and this can adjust your intonation at higher registers. So the strings taper off at the neck here, or at the nut. You can see this thing's got issues. It was like that when I got it. I realized I forgot to mention the truss rod in the course of editing this. The truss rod is metal rod that runs the full length of the neck inside of it, the end of which is located just past the nut on the headstock. It is a small opening, and that opening is usually a adjustment head, which with the right tool can be adjusted to loosen or tighten truss rod so as to adjust the bowing of the neck and also to adjust the intonation of the lower register notes to make sure that the fret buzz does not occur. So this is, I don't know what the name for this is, but this basically is just a device for keeping these strings with tension at a slight angle. You need to have an angle at the nut. If they're straight from the nut across, you have all kinds of issues come forth from that. So this was the solution in their case. You'll see on the Fender Stratocaster guitars that they have something similar that's a little bracket, and it'll be usually on the higher two strings of the 6. So these are the tuning heads. The way these go on here is that you put the string through the slot, then you coil a couple times around the top, whatever direction you're going. You can do them either way. Once you have it on but somewhat loose, then you can start tightening the tuning head. You can see there's a worm gear and a cog, 90-degree torque. And then you tighten it up. And once you have it tightened up, the way that the instrument works is the length of the string at tension. The tension of the string determines the full vibration of the string. The frequency of that vibration is the note. So whatever, the easiest thing I can do is, because I know that A tends to be 440, we'll say that this is 440. That is a full string vibration, right? If you play the octave, which is to cover this fret right here, so 440, this is 880. So that's how it works. It's fractions on the strings. Got a curious kitty. That's how it works. Your standard tune bass, this string is the low one. So this is E, this is A, this is D, and this is G. Now, this bass is currently set up for standard tuning or to be played a whole step lower, which is fairly common in a lot of rock and metal music to down tune a little bit. When I was playing in my old band from 2006 or 7 all the way up through 2010, this bass was actually tuned 1.5 steps down. So instead of E, this was C sharp. Instead of A, this was F sharp. Instead of D, this was B. And instead of G, this was E. So it was tuned down. This note is what would have been here, kind of thing. So if I tuned so that this E was played on this fret, down here you would have the whole guitar relative to itself would be tuned down 1.5 steps. So each fret basically just pinches off a little bit, changes the length of the string, and because of the appropriate tension and tuning, then you are able to have and so on. In order to tune a bass to itself, well, first we'll explain the fourth in the scaling, right? So it's to the octave. And the double dot represents the octave note. And so you've got your third, your fourth, your fifth, your sixth. Then seventh will either be here, or your sixth is here and your seventh is here. Also differs depending on which string because of the way scales work. But if you're already a musician, like the person I'm making this video for, this will become obvious when you fiddle around and recognize where the notes are at. So for tuning purposes, if you don't have a tuner attached, you have a piano or something, you can tune your strings up. If you want to make sure that your intonation is close, what you do is you tune to this harmonic right over this fret. So I'm going to hold gently here, but I'm going to use my pinky finger over here, which you can't see. So you use from this fret harmonic, just gently mute it, pluck it, and let off. This will fit with the harmonic of the next string down at the 7th fret. So we'll go here, then we'll go here. And you can hear if that is in tune. And then you do the same thing here. You can do the 12th fret on the A string, 7th fret on the D string, 12th fret on the D string, 7th fret on the G. Another way you can do this is, at least as far as if you're only playing up here, you can keep this easily in tune by this is the same as this. So this is your A, this is your D, this is your G, which this would then should be a B, but it's not. That's B. Because of the way that the 12-note, 8-tone octave system works, these semitones, your next two strings down would actually be a half off relative to the rest. That is how a 6-string guitar arrives at the string here becomes a B, the one after that becomes an E. Now you notice I was explaining that with the alternate tuning on this, that this was a B and this was an E. But these being in a direct fourth relative standard tuning to a bass were F sharp and C sharp. So you see. So if you want to tune just up here to be able to play some basic blues walks on a guitar, to play basic open chords and etc., you tune from the 5th fret to the open next string. An alternate way of doing this is to do a harmonic on the 5th fret wire and the 7th fret of the next string. So I'll do it with my pinky on the camera hand. And the same on down. 5th fret on the A string, harmonic. 7th fret harmonic. 5th fret D string harmonic. 7th fret G string harmonic. And if there's not a lot of dissonant warble between, then you're in tune. If it starts to wah, 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 then you adjust gently up and down until it stops warbling. You tune by ear with these instruments oftentimes. Although to record or to play with an ensemble at a show, obviously you have to tune to a common note. It usually involves electronic tuning. So that's the rudimentary basics. A couple of other things I want to cover. Let me go grab my plectrum real quick. So there is, of course, much debate among bassists and non-bassists about pick versus no pick. So first off, my chosen pick, if I'm going to use a pick, is this, which is the Jim Dunlop vinyl 0.96 millimeter. It's somewhat thin, but thicker than your typical guitar pick. It has a slight tapered edge, which allows a lot of control with the attack sound. Attack refers to the pick scrape or the finger scrape and the fret tap. This is all tonal sound that can be used for the art that you are able to have control over. So how you hold the pick, whether you just rake the edges, whether you pluck, or whether you hold it back here and get real big chunky, like there's all kinds of control, right? But the other thing is, if you're playing with a pick and you're playing bass, what's going to happen is your fingertips are going to become calloused. Now, mine are really not, but you can see the places where I've been playing bass for the last couple hours to try and make a video, and I'm already feeling it coming back. So what will happen is you'll start to get some blisters on the tips of your fingers. Do not, if you want to be able to play, do not put lotion on those. Let them harden. What will happen is you get a nice, hard, tappable, you can take your fingertip and go like this, and it'll be like, because of the callus on the tip of your finger. This allows you to better intone your notes. But as you're gaining calluses on this hand, if you're playing with a pick, you're not gaining calluses on this hand. So my advice is to learn how to do finger style as well. It will also hurt your fingers. It will also give you metal dust that you need to wash off, and I'll talk about that in a second. But what it gives you is finger strength and muscle memory for things like this. And you can play a nice, no upstroke. If you're playing this, your ups and your downs have a little different energy and a little different sound to them. And you can tell when someone is going versus. So if you're playing an intricate bass line, it's actually pretty good to be able to use this. You're almost never going to use your pinky in this just because it doesn't have the strength. But using these other ones, you still have thumb plucking as well as 3 fingers. You've got four plectrum applications at once. Now, the next thing is it gets a little funky trying to figure out, pun not intended, trying to figure out where to put your hand, how to hold it. It's one thing to learn how to play a guitar where you're stroking up and down while you're strumming, and you're used to, you gain a zone where you're used to moving. You've got your palm mute area where you're on the strings, or you got a comfort zone you find here, okay? Playing bass doesn't really have that. Now, if you're playing a pick, yeah, you kind of have an area but then the question is, where on this do you pluck? Well, you can pluck over the pickup, or you can pluck behind it, or you can pluck between them, wherever you want. On the amplifier, each pickup has a slightly different kind of feel to it. This one's a little bit warmer and wetter. This one's a little bit cooler and drier. In an instrument like this, you have independent volume control for each of these pickups. This is called precision. This is called jazz. The pickup is, of course, magnets it's a magnetic bar with posts attached, typically metal posts that are just conducting the magnetism, and then a copper coil around it that is then wired into the knobs, which are called potentiometers or pots. So in this case, we have an independent volume for the precision, independent volume for the jazz, and then a tone knob, which allows you to go between having things be more on the lower, mufflier end or on the clearer, higher end, or somewhere in between. I like a little bit of this, keep them both all the way up. Maybe bring them back. But what that gives is a pretty comprehensive tone that allows you to be pretty versatile with your playing as far as what styles, what types of things, without having to change the pickup, turn the knobs, hit the pedals, just to be able to go between fingerstyle and pick. That's why I like a PJ or a jazz bass. To me, they sound better in between. This thing's got some real good sound to it. Now, this pick guard, if you were to unscrew this, you will have the electronics for the instrument underneath of it. If you're familiar with electronics and soldering, you can replace the pickups, you can replace the knobs, you can replace the wires, you can do whatever you want. What else is there? We got tuning, we got the parts of the bass. So when you're starting to play, and like I said, I advise that you play fingerstyle. Some basses have a little black piece on here that is literally a thumb stop so that you have somewhere to hold yourself and get this muscle memory together. In lieu of something like that, you can hold on to this. The best place that everybody does it is on one of these. You put it like right here behind the screw, and you got a good spot here, right over the pickups. And once you move to the next string, you can thumb mute these other strings as you go. That's how you play bass. And the same thing here. You can just you learn it. It takes practice, a little bit of muscle memory, and I'd say about 3 to 6 weeks, and you start having some real calluses on your fingertips to where this becomes effortless. You're just generating sound, and it doesn't hurt your hands anymore. So the last thing I mentioned about the pick and whatever is playing this, you're going to get the metal dust on your fingertips. You need to make sure you wash your hands. Do not rub your eyes. Do not put these in your mouth. Same thing with a pick. It's a very strong common tendency to throw the pick into your teeth, bite on the pick and hold it there while you use your fingers to play. Don't do that. You can switch your pick down into here and then use these two and hold it and then switch it back out. You get used to that real quick. You can have pick holders, the little pinchers that go on the mic stand. You can have this thing loosened up so you can stick your pick underneath the here and store extras or whatever. You can have extra picks on your stand so that if you need to switch the finger, you just drop the pick on the stage and then keep doing. And when you need a pick, you pick another one off the thing and keep going. The reason I say this is these strings will release metal dust onto your skin, no matter how you slice it. It'll happen using this, even though the plastic's softer than the metal. It's all around these places where it moves. If you look really close here, this is what's called a round wound string. This is a core of wire with a coil all the way around it. And every time this vibrates, all those little ridges are rubbing up against each other as well, which means there is going to be metal dust coming off of this. And heavy metal poisoning is a real serious health risk. There's a lot of health issues that electric guitarists and bassists have that I think they don't attribute to that. Case in point, Edward Van Halen. You can blame the smoking, you can blame some drinking or whatever, but the fact is this guy was playing guitar with his teeth from time to time. He was using his teeth to work on stuff. He was holding a pick in his teeth. He was doing two-hand taps and then grabbing the cigarette and hitting that with his fingers right on his lips. And then one day he had to have part of his tongue removed. So my advice as a musician is it's good to use the fast fret oil to keep your frets and fretboard soft, and it's good to keep strings smooth and bright. But wash your hands. Don't put your fingers in your mouth after playing bass. It may be hard to remember. Just go wash your hands real quick. Seriously. Save yourself a lot of health, heartache, and trouble later on. So that's what I got. To pick or not to pick, that's your decision. Two-hand tap is pretty simple as far as how to do it. How to play it is a whole other thing. That's a music theory that I don't possess. The other thing is slap and pop is a more advanced technique, and all it really comes to is that you find a good place on the string that you can to learn how to do that. You get a callus on the side of your thumb, and then. But at the same time, there are rhythmic, percussive things you are doing with the hand on the neck here, that you're muting certain strings while also holding certain ones that you need to hit. So like you go bump, 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 beep, beep, bump, 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 beep, bump, bump. However you're playing on here, you have as much that you have to pay attention to with your left hand while doing this as you would say Ken de Poitrine has on his foot pedal action. That's the kind of keeping track that you have going on until you internalize it and familiarize it and become so used to doing it that it's just second nature, which I have not. I can barely play some slap bass. I can get a couple notes out and that's it. But I at least understand how it works. So with that said, that's everything here. I'm going to try and edit this down for time a little bit, cut out a couple of unnecessary bits, and bass is fairly easy to do. I encourage anyone who is interested to, by all means, try. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged. Yes, your fingers are going to hurt. Your fingertips are going to get these string lines through them where you're doing this and you're going to pull it up and be like, oh my God, it made a dimple and look at my fingertip. It's bent. Wash your hands. Don't put lotion on it. Do this every day for weeks and weeks. And eventually your fingers will stop hurting. It's easier to wash them off and you'll be able to fret notes like it's nothing. And then if you're already a musician, you just have to build up the muscle memory of where your hands go. And that's up to you as well, or University of YouTube. So that's what I got. Thank you for joining me. And I hope this has been informative. By all means, if you have access to a bass, learn how to play it.